normal, effectiveness and efficiency of online and hybrid events. Chris is the director of the Event Expert and has been designing, planning and delivering events for 24 years. In that time, he has been a local authority events manager and events director of a range of events and festivals in the UK, as well as helping a variety of organizations to deliver their events as a freelance events manager and consultant. Good morning, Chris. Please proceed.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome from a rainy UK. So no great surprise there for you, but we've had a little bit of sunshine, but no, I'm afraid it's a rainy UK. So what you're going to watch me do is trundle around the laptop a little bit and find my presentation, and there we are. So that's what happens on virtual events. You see people kind of staring at screens and things like that as well. So let me get started then. Right. Thank you very much indeed, everybody, for attending this webinar. I guess it's good afternoon in the UAE and possibly good evening in Singapore. It's relatively early in the morning in the UK, and I'm delighted to be part of this Domus webinar on virtual and hybrid events. Oh, sorry, not sure what I've done there. And it's just such a fascinating subject. I've been in the live events business for 25 years. I figured live was the only thing that mattered. But I have to say these last few months, where we all know what's happened, my opinion on the kind of virtual and hybrid world has changed, actually. And I'm becoming more of a fan of the online world. I always thought it couldn't be replaced by a live event. But done well, you know, hybrid and virtual events are incredibly powerful tool. So what I'm going to try and do is just kind of talk you through the process of particularly talking about hybrid events. So there will be a little bit of crossover from Vivian's talk in terms of the virtual side of a hybrid event as well. But that hopefully will reinforce that you know, both of us think that the virtual hybrid world is a really fantastic opportunity. So the key part, as with everything in life, is that it's got to be done well, because your virtual audience can kind of sign off pretty quickly. So it's important that your traditional event management skills come absolutely to the fore. Okay, so let's have just a few kind of definitions really. For those who understand hybrid, it's absolutely fine. So this will just reinforce what you already know. But just to remind what a hybrid event is, it's a live in-person event with online components. So that's your live stream speech, that's your Q&A, that's your panel. So it really is this kind of blend of live and virtual. And the really key part here, and that's what Vivian alluded to, is this engagement of your remote audience. You need to keep them involved, because what's different is the energy in the room doesn't exist for those remotely. Ordinarily, you know, a live event has, you know, people wandering around chatting, there's an energy, there's connections, there's all those sorts of things as well. Your remote events, or your remote audience I should say, are actually just sat there on the laptop, on the phone and that. So it's incumbent on us to really engage them, to make them feel part of this event. So just some quick definitions here. A live event, primary audience in the room. You're looking at them, okay? You can see them, you can feel the energy, you can do all that sorts of stuff as well. A virtual event, then your audience is entirely online. So occasionally you might get to see one or two people, but the larger the event, it's pretty unlikely. So those on camera are effectively panelists, audience members and speakers. So they do remain quite remote. They of course can see what's going on, but you really have very little connection. As you get to very big virtual events, then there's very little connection at all. So what we're going to talk about is hybrid events. So you have two primary audiences, one in the room and one online. And the truth is they are equally important. You know, we absolutely mustn't forget one or the other and go, well, the people in the room are the matter because, you know, I can see them and all the rest of it. Your remote audience, and I would probably suspect your remote audience is actually, well, no, your remote audience will always be bigger, and therefore they're incredibly important to make sure that you, every step of the way, you're being very, what I call audience centric, and you're taking care of your remote audience. So they are equally important. So why bother on the hybrid front? We're all pretty familiar with the benefits of events themselves, but the things that I like about the hybrid side of things is you just have this much greater control. The last few months have demonstrated in full technicolor that there is stuff outside our control that will cancel your events. We also are very conscious as we travel around the world that there's political, environmental, and health risks that also impact on your ability to put on events. So we have much, much greater control, which I do like. You know, I'm an event manager, so being a little bit control freakish is my world. You will always have higher attendance and reach, so to speak. So the question before was about digital marketing and promotion. Now, done well, your audiences will be much bigger, okay? You will be able to reach new audiences, you'll be able to reach global audiences, and you could, by doing this, become much more inclusive and diverse because you're reducing the entry barriers to your event, okay? Perhaps I can't travel, perhaps I don't have the cash to pay a full price, perhaps I might get there but can't stay. So you become much more inclusive, and that for us as companies and organizations, whatever it is that you do, has to be a good thing to be more inclusive and diverse, and to allow those kind of entry barriers to be reduced as well. Vivian alluded to it as well. It's just got better metrics. You know, the platforms that you use on your virtual side of your event are all set up with great analytics, so you absolutely know what works and what doesn't. And you're vital, and it is a vital future planning aid. So I really understand what works, what doesn't, and what I need to do different next time around. And that is given to me in real time. You know, getting evaluations at the end of kind of live events is really hard. You know, people really don't want to do it. They don't want to fill in forms, they just want to get gone. But this virtual side of your hybrid events allows you to get these fantastic metrics as well. If you're involved in the world of sponsorship for your events as well, then there's much, much more opportunities because effectively you have two parts to sponsor now, and you have a larger audience to aim at. Again, the metrics allow us to demonstrate to the sponsors if there's been click-throughs to websites and things like that as well. So on the opportunity front, you have all the usual stuff that we can sponsor at a live event, but you can move the sponsorship package and perhaps increase it to your online version of that as well. And that's just a real opportunity to broaden or deepen a sponsorship relationship as well. And as I said, you know, sponsors are after metrics. They love the idea of being able to demonstrate, you know, exactly what's happened. We all have a personal responsibility as event managers to be much more sustainable. You know, we are one of the worst people, or major events certainly are one of the worst things in terms of sustainability. So we absolutely need to embrace hybrid events as a way of reducing our carbon footprint. It is much more cost effective generally. It's a much more economical alternative as well if you're not versed with great budgets. And some of us, as we come out of the pandemic, will realize that budgets are a little bit tight actually, and we need to have events as part of our marketing strategy, and we need to do something, but actually we don't have the cash to do the big grand, you know, major venue, major catering kind of style thing, but we do have enough cash to do you know, a very good alternative, which might be a hybrid or a virtual. Every time I've ever run an event in my life, and I've done 500 odd, then there is enforced event travel. I make people travel to that event, to that venue, okay? And what hybrid and virtual does is reduce that need to travel. which again, I accept that there's always consequences of reducing travel for certain companies, but again, it is incumbent on us as responsible event managers to really consider about how we run our events and kind of tick that sustainability button as well. As companies who bravely grasp the nettle, they found out that this this virtual and hybrid market is going to be, it's virtual right now because there are no live events. Well, they're coming, but not yet. So at the moment, the virtual event world is a real financial lifeline to those companies that have grabbed it. Those that have buried their head in the sand and hope everything's going to be all right at the other end, I've really lost out. Okay, so it's an incredible opportunity at the moment to, keep being front of mind of your clients and customers, because perhaps if you're not doing that, then they may be attracted to, to other competitors of yours. So it's a really important lifeline in terms of kind of a financial stream. May not make you exactly the same amount of money as your live event does, but you will have a much bigger audience. And what it does do is you can take your online, your live event stuff, and then you can use it, and we call it repurpose it, share that content again and again and again, which you can then use to feed your marketing funnel. So you're keeping in contact with your audience, you're broadening your funnel, you're probably doing some kind of lead magnet stuff where you're putting some information out to kind of attract people to come to your world. So one of the advantages of hybrid is that you have this lovely recorded content which you can use and repurpose and share again and again. So let's talk a little bit about the kind of how-to of successful hybrid events. I talked earlier about the fact that you have two equally important audiences. So guess what? They just both want fantastic content. Relevant, insightful, engaging, and absolutely 100% focused on solving some sort of problem for them. So what we're looking for is behavior changing content. I call it, agreeing on what you call the money action. The money action is the behavior change that I require from my audience. Is it an upskill? Is it a change in attitude? Is it a change in behavior? So your content has to be absolutely on the money. Virtual events are in the main shorter than their kind of live counterparts. So you have to be really spot on in terms of your content. And there's a lot of often, and forgive my phraseology, there's a lot of dead wood in some conferences, and that all has to go. This has to be fantastic content all the time. Your event venue can effectively be a little bit smaller. So liken your event venue to your studio, like a TV studio. And it's very important that that venue has very good 4 or 5G connectivity to make sure that your live streaming is right spot on the money. So there are no technical issues or bandwidth issues, okay? So your event venue is very much your live event venue, but also consider it as being kind of your studio. You want to put out, good, I call it broadcast grade sound and pictures. So this needs to be a high class digital experience. Okay, so we want to put in what we can afford, but make it feel as though somebody has really put in the effort to make sure that the pictures and the sound are great. And trust me, whenever the pictures and the sound get a little bit flaky at any style of event, that's where people kind of start to switch off as well. Vivian talked about some kind of networking software, so absolutely introduce that into your hybrid events as well. My suggestion possibly is that your in the room networking group are quite comfortable networking, but I suspect the networking software is best used predominantly, or rather to have two separate audiences, so your remote networkers and your in the room networkers. I think that at the moment, I think that works better. And always have what I call breakout rooms, and these could be, where you have a round table chat. They need to be moderated, all those sorts of things as well. I was on an event last week, and there were breakout rooms for the coffee break, which was really cool. Actually, I really liked it. Where we were on a coffee break, so we just sat having a coffee, and there were 5 or 6 people up in front of me, so we had a little chat as well. Engaging your remote audience is absolutely key. Okay, really, really important. So that's surveys, chat, Q&A, competitions, anything you can think of just to keep that engagement going. And certainly my experience is that, you know, the chat and the Q&A can be a fantastic stream of information. You know, people asking questions, suggesting solutions to some people's questions as well. And it's a really, really important stream of information. In fact, sometimes it feels like there's kind of 2 events going on as well. Speaking online is not the same as speaking in front of a live audience. It requires certain skills and certain techniques to be able to bring that kind of energy and that kind of feeling of passion and engagement from a speaker into the remote room, so to speak. So you need to select your speakers wisely, and you really want people who are skilled in online speaking. This is something you can learn, obviously, and I suspect I'm probably more comfortable speaking in front of a live audience because I can really gauge what's happening. At the moment, you can see me, but I can't see you, so I don't get any sense of what's happening. So you're picking your speakers is really, really key. And of course, they've got to be on the money in terms of the content as well. And as Vivian said, they can come from anywhere in the world now. They don't have to be the people that you know are next to you or part of your kind of social circle or your business circle as well. There are lots of kind of virtual platforms out there at the moment. So we're on GoToWebinar, Zoom, all those sorts of things as well. So they exist. My suggestion really would be twofold, really, that there's a degree of simplicity about them. There's nothing worse than being invited to a webinar that has a tricky setup system. It's not easy to work out how it's going to work, because just imagine your speakers have got the same issues as well. So a degree of simplicity I think is good, and a great user experience. So, you know, this needs to work for everybody. Now, there's some very great stuff out there, much more complex than some of the ones I've mentioned, but it really think about your audience first. You know, are they going to get it, want it? Are you going to make them download stuff? Are you going to chuck in a load of apps in there which they have to download as well? So just think about the user experience, because it's entirely incumbent on us as good event managers to make sure that user experience is brilliant. Do invest in what I call high production values. So always hire an experienced contractor who understands the world of kind of broadcast quality style or broadcast style quality events. Okay, you know, the lighting, the backdrops, the sets, the sound, and all those sorts of things as well. This doesn't have to be expensive, by the way, but it does need to be done well. I mean, I guess we're all familiar with people kind of being lit a little bit differently on online events. Some you can see, some you can't. Okay, and one of the things that is absolutely key, as Nadine is ably demonstrating, is that the host is really, really important to keep the flow of the event, keep weaving the content together, listening in for speakers, and they're able to dovetail them into the next ones as well. So your event host is incredibly important as well. And of course, as we know, there are technical difficulties sometimes, and you know, your event host has to leap in and perhaps come up with some sort of contingency planning as well. So just to finish off, I know I'm talking about hybrid, but let's just talk about hybrid or virtual. My thinking right now is it's just a must-do activity. You know, I'm having to pivot my kind of event training, my event consultancy online, and get used to this new world. You know, I much prefer to be in front of somebody face to face. I can't do it, so I need to pivot. Okay, so I'm pivoting into this kind of virtual world as well. So live events are going to return. Some countries it's kind of there, others we're still a little away from live events. My suggestion is they're very likely to be small at first, and attendance rates are going to be low. And the reason for that is that people will not feel confident enough to come along to events. And one of the things I'm doing at the moment, working on an event at the moment where I'm putting in all the health and safety and risk assessment plans with a kind of a COVID feel to them. And it's incumbent on me to make sure that in that risk assessment, people really look at it and the public think, yeah, they're doing everything they should do. Okay, because I need to give confidence to my audience that I'm doing the right thing. So your live only events program is, in my head, a risky strategy. You're going to lose months because your live event program is going to be stopped. So I think going forward, it's a risky strategy. Audiences are comfortable with tech now. It's all over the place. You know, your parents, your grandparents, everybody's on it, everybody's using it. So the world has changed. We need to change. We need to adapt, and we need to adapt in order to survive. As Charles Darwin once said many years ago, it's those that adapt that are going to survive. Okay, so your hybrid events have this lovely balance, cater for the live audience that you know, desperately want to come, and you know, I will still be going to live events, but I absolutely want an option now to attend virtually. And for those that can't attend, your virtual event or your virtual side of your hybrid allows you to be able to, you know, to be part of an event which perhaps ordinarily you would never be able to be part of as well. So the key things here is, you know, great content, followed up by some really good messaging. So that's all your promotional side. You know, really there's compelling reasons to attend. Why should I come to this event? You know, what's so good about it? Why is it for me? And that needs to be backed up by some good technology just to keep the whole thing moving behind the scenes effectively. And then you get what I call a modern relevant event. And that is exactly where we need to be right now. Okay, so thank you very much for your time and attention. That's been a quick kind of whistle-stop tour of the world of kind of hybrid events. You'll note my company is the Event Expert, and I do kind of online and in-house event management courses covering all types of business, public and, of course, virtual events now. So I'm going to sign off there, and thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you too, Chris, for your very useful insights. We'll now move on to some questions from our audience. Once again, please use the chat box to post your questions for Chris. So the first question we will start with, Chris, what do you think is the future of hybrid events after travel bans and gathering restrictions have been lifted?
I think you know the answer to this, but I think they've got a very positive future. I think we absolutely must embrace them. We're pretty comfortable with the kind of virtual world now. The next step is to have that live element and that virtual element. So I think there's going to be, I think there'll be a very positive future. It will suit some companies more than others. Some will embrace it, others will just kind of hang on to the past and think, well, no, it has to be live or it's not going to work. Unfortunately, if I spent my life thinking about what's gone, then I would never have a successful business going forward. So I absolutely need to embrace all these sorts of things. As I said, I'm a live events person. I love live. But I think it has a very, very positive future. And I think it's something that we really must embrace.
Yes, I agree about this. Also, we have a question from Jackson. He's asking how to design pre and post event deliverables for sponsors and hybrid events, which will help event companies monetize and at the same time sponsor also get their return on investment.
Wow, that's a good question. Yeah, doesn't he realize it's quite early in the morning for long questions like that?
Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I can, yes, I know it's absolutely fine. Right, as with all sponsorships, there's, you know, the days of, you know, sponsorship package A, B, and C have gone. You know, that's history. Okay, so sponsorship is very much a partnership. So this is about two parties chatting about their events and working about where the opportunities actually exist. Okay, it's no point me saying, well, I'll give you this package and it costs this amount. You have to have this kind of partnership. So it's very much a partnership. So I'm not keen on the word sponsorship now because it has to be a partnership. And what the virtual and the hybrid side allows us just much better metrics, so we can actually understand what is happening. We can also be very clear on numbers that actually turn up. We can ask very specific questions about the audience to make sure that the audience is actually the audience the sponsors actually want. So there is one small caveat here, is that often you have to run an event first to understand its true audience, and then it becomes much easier to sell it in terms of kind of sponsorship as well. So there is that caveat, is that sometimes you need to run this thing first to actually get the kind of metrics as well. Just remind me, have I missed something? That was quite a long question. I think I might have I missed? So apologies, Jackson. I'm happy to do it
entirely. So we'll just conclude this session's question and answer. And again, if you have any further questions for Chris, please feel free to email your question to events@domusgroup.ae. And we've already posted the email address in the chat box for your reference. Just to remind you all, Chris and our other speakers are also available for independent trainings for individuals or groups. Domus Events can help you facilitate this, so please get in touch with Domus Events using the same email address, events@domusgroup.ae, for further details. For those of you just joining us, we would like to encourage you to take advantage of the interactivity of this webinar to share insights and ask questions by typing in the chat box. We'll address your questions during the question and answer at the end of each session. Thanks again, Chris, for sharing all your insights with us.
My pleasure.